Brethren, we are back to continue the journey in June 14. I go and prepare a place for you. Now we will investigate, make arrangements, the second element. And the best word for make arrangement is judgment. Remember, the best word for make ready was intercede or intercession. The best word for make arrangements is judge or judgment. Let's go in John chapter 5, verses 22 and 24. I read for you. For the Father judges no one, but has committed all judgment to the Son. Most assuredly I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me has everlasting life, and shall not come into judgment, but has passed from death to life. I like how Jesus puts it. First of all, number one, I will be in charge of the judgment, Jesus told his disciples, not my Father. Number two, he who believes in me will not come to judgment. Jesus did not say that he who believes in me will not be judged. He made it clear, will not come into judgment. Remember, we use the word intercede for the first part. In fact, the word intercede means intervene on someone else's behalf or advocate for someone. We will not come to judgment because Jesus is advocating for me. Jesus is advocating for you. That's why we will not come into judgment. In fact, Peter in 1 Peter chapter 4, 17 and 18 wrote, for the time has come for judgment to begin at the house of God. And if it begins with us first, what will be the end of those who do not obey to the gospel of God? Now, if the righteous one is scarcely saved, where will the ungodly in the sinner appear? Peter said that the judgment will start with us, with the believers first. That's where the investigation will start. And then the investigation of the sinners is something separate. I like how Peter puts it. Separate. In fact, in Matthew chapter 22, I'm just quoting that for you. Jesus places the judgment before the wedding. Remember, Jesus told the disciples, I'm going to prepare a place for you. I'm going to receive for myself a kingdom, and I'm going to participate in a wedding. All those in heaven. Once I am done with those in my Father's house, I will come back. Jesus places the judgment before the wedding. That means before the second coming. And I love that. Please go with me in Daniel chapter 7. We will see together verses 9, 10, and 13. Let's see together. I watched till thrones were put in place, And the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire. Verse 10. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated and books were opened. Verse 13. I watched in the night vision, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Now let's begin with verse 13. One like a Son of Man coming with the clouds. Not on this planet. He's coming with the clouds to the Father. That's the beginning of the judgment. The Son of Man, that's Jesus' favorite name for himself. Jesus is approaching the Father to oversee the judgment. Remember John chapter 5, when Jesus told his disciples, the Father will not oversee the judgment. He has committed the judgment to me. Jesus said, now we see that in Daniel chapter 7. Let me tell you, even though Daniel is placed in the Bible before John, what Daniel is telling us there happened thousands of years after Jesus returned back to heaven. Daniel 7 verse 13, Jesus is the one in charge of the judgment. Daniel 7 verse 10, angels, millions of angels, they have their eyes wide open into our records. Remember that I told you we will not come to judgment. Look what's going on there. Books are opened, records. I have records. You have records from the time we are born on this planet until we die. We have records of our good and bad actions. And Jesus brings those records into judgment. The judgment begins from the beginning with Abel, the first one who passed away. That's where Jesus started, until he gets to analyze the records of the living ones. What happened? Jesus pulls Abel's record and projects that on a huge screen. Everybody can see what's going on. When I mean everybody, no human eyes will see the records of the righteous. Millions of angels, they will see the records. This is Abel's, everything he had done. But Jesus can show them how he intercedes for Abel, forgave Abel, and cleansed Abel. Each time one is saved, a white garment is given to that one, saved for eternity. Records after records being pulled as I am talking to you right now. God is pulling records after records before the angels. That one, we called him as a sinner. That's his life. But here is how I change him. That's what the judgment is about. The judgment is a great news, the greatest news of salvation ever. Don't be afraid of the judgment. That's the greatest news about salvation. Jesus is showing heaven those who are going to come among you for 1,000 years. Here they are. They used to be sinners, but in partnership with me, they let me cleanse them. Now they are ready because I made them ready. I prepare them. Unfortunately, when Jesus pulled Judas' record, because at a certain point Judas publicly said that he accepted Jesus as Lord and personal Savior, his record will be pulled. And Jesus will show Judas before he came among the team. And he will show Judas fight. That one, his name will be erased from the record of the righteous. They pull names, we cleanse that one, saved for eternity. Unfortunately, that one was like a foolish virgin. They did not let me cleanse them. They are lost for eternity. Verse 9. I watched till thrones were put in place. I love that. Here is the first reason why I love that. In Matthew chapter 19, verse 28, Jesus told his disciples, and I read for you, assuredly I say to you that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on the throne of his glory, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12th tribe of Israel. Jesus promised the disciples that they would be sitting on thrones, executing judgment. Now that the judgment is taking place in heaven right now, that's the opportunity for Jesus to keep that promise. Each time a name is classified for eternity, a throne is prepared for that individuals with that individual's new name. Jesus is making preparation, reservation. Abel is classified for eternity. A throne is put in place for Abel with his new name. Daniel, David, Peter, James, John. Each time one is saved, at the end of the investigation, that person's investigations, a throne is put in place for that person. Jesus promised the disciples, you would be sitting on thrones. He is keeping his promises. He did not only promise thrones to the disciples, he promised thrones to each and every one of us. If you want to see that, let's go with me in Revelation chapter 3, where Jesus promised thrones to everyone. The church of Laodicea, the last of the 7 churches of Revelation, the time frame that church occupies in history starts from 1844 until the second coming. The Church of Laodicea covers the period of the judgment. Preparing thrones give us the timeline of the judgment. Here is what Jesus told folks living during that time. Revelation 3:21. To him who overcomes, I will grant to sit with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat with my Father on his throne. That church is the only church Jesus promised thrones to, not because the thrones are just for them, but because when Jesus promised something to one of the 7 churches in Revelation, he made the promise according to what was going on during that time frame. Jesus tells me, he tells you that from 1844 until a couple of years before the second coming, that's when the judgment is taking place. And Jesus uses the church of Laodicea to tell us, to give us the judgment timeline. Now, let's go to Revelation chapter 20 after the second coming, and let's see what John tells us. Revelation 20 verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they that sat on them, judgment was committed to them. Quick review. In Matthew 19, Jesus promised the disciples they would be sitting on thrones judging. In Daniel 7, during the judgment, the thrones Jesus promised to the disciples are being prepared. In Revelation chapter 3:21, Jesus repeats the promise of the throne to give us a timeline of the judgment from 1844 until a couple of years before the second coming, because the judgment will end a couple of years before the second coming, and we will see why in our next presentation. Revelation 20 verse 4, Jesus comes, he gets those he had made ready. They go to heaven for the 1,000 years. Now John sees them in heaven sitting on thrones, executing judgment exactly according to what Jesus promised to his disciples. Let me say something to me and to you right now. From 1844 until now, Jesus has been making arrangements. But the greatest news, from that time Jesus ascended to heaven until now, he had been making people ready. Those he had made ready, he pulls the record in judgment to show heaven they are going to come among you because I made them ready. I'm inviting you today to let Jesus make you ready. The judgment is wrapping up. Cleansing, making people ready is wrapping up. This is your time. This is my time. to let Jesus make me ready, to let Jesus make you ready, to let him make arrangement for us, to let him save us. May God bless me, may God bless you, Judson Otherwise Biblical Forensics. Thank you.